Hi everybody, and welcome to North of 60. I'm Heidi Schweighoefer. Today we're going to talk about money. Certainly an important subject that we all have to contend with, and especially as we start going towards those retirement years. My guest is Karin Stifler, a certified financial planner with Walden Wealth Management Company, and also a resident of Hudson for 27 years. Thank you. Did I get it right? The name of the company, Karin?
Walden Wealth Partners, but close enough, Heidi. All good.
Thank
it's all
you.
good.
Thank you. All right, let's start. Social Security is in the news financially all the time. What age should one begin? Should we wait till 70? Should we take our spouses? Let's talk about Social Security first.
Okay. Well, we experience a lot of different changes throughout our lives. I like to say we live our lives in chapters. And when we come close to that retirement chapter, we're faced with decisions that we've really never made before. And one of them is, how do I handle Social Security? The Social Security system started in 1935, thanks to our President Roosevelt, and it was really intended to be kind of a supplement to other forms of income that we would have in retirement. And in fact, today, it really rarely is the only source of income in retirement, but what's special about it is that it's a promise of income for life. An income for life that's not subject to what the stock market is doing. Mm-hmm. So for many of us, it's our safest layer of income in retirement. And the reason why a lot of people struggle with it is because there's about 2,700 different rules around Social Security.
Oh my Lord.
So it is no surprise that most people are really overwhelmed by that decision. Mm-hmm. The basic choices that we have around it have to do with, when do I start it?
Right.
And for a person who's not in a particular unique category, that usually the age range for starting Social Security is 62 on up to a maximum of 70 years old.
Okay. And
there's a point at which everyone has sort of a ground zero benefit, and it's called our official retirement age.
Okay, right.
And that retirement age is a function of what our birth year is. So for many people retiring now, that official full retirement age is actually 67. And it's at
really?
67 that your baseline, actually 66 or 67, depending on age of retirement. But it's at that point that your benefit is kind of at that ground zero level. If you choose to take your benefit prior to that age, the benefit will be reduced. So as an example, if you chose to take your benefit at the earliest possible point, age 62, it would only be about 75% of what that ground zero level would be. And that's a permanent reduction. So every year when the Social Security benefit is increased with the cost of living adjustment, in fact, they just announced next year's
1.6, I think,
very
or something.
Good,
yeah.
Very good. You establish your benefit at a lower level at 62, and then you're really just tacking on those small cost of living benefits.
Okay.
Conversely, if you wait until you're 70, then the benefit actually increases by about 8% a year. And so we can think of that 8% as being, relative to what you might expect in the stock market, a risk-free rate of return on income for life. So because of how generous the increase is if you wait to age 70, it's really ideal if you can wait to age 70, or at least one person in a married or partner relationship waits to age 70 to really maximize that benefit. You start at a much higher level, therefore the increases are also more meaningful.
Okay.
So as an example, if someone had a, kind of that ground zero baseline benefit of, say, $24,000 a year,
okay.
If you waited to 70, your benefit would actually rise to about $32,000 a year.
Oh, so much
in
better.
4 years, for example, that's an extra $8,000 a year.
Right.
But not all of us can wait until we're 70. So, that's where everybody's situation is different. And what's really important in making this decision, because you pretty much get one shot at doing it, is to really take your time, do a thoughtful analysis around it, meet with the Social Security folks. Many offices around the area, I find them to be, despite maybe some exceptions to the rule, actually very knowledgeable and very helpful. So they can help you lay out your options and then find the best choice for you.
Okay. So it depends. Now, here's what I've heard. So if you start at 62 or you start at 70, and notwithstanding the change in what that income is every year, it all evens out at the end. If you take 62 and you live to 95, or you start at 70 and you live to 90, that there's a way that they have adjusted it, and I may be way off base here, so that any 90-year-old and 90-year-old, whether it's 70 or 62, assuming the same amount per month, just pretty much turns out equal. Is that true, or is that completely false?
Not necessarily, but the swing factor is longevity.
Right.
The longer you live, the more likely waiting to age 70 was a smarter decision. And you can actually compute a break-even point. For example, if you chose a benefit at age 62, you could calculate if you live at least this long, it would have been better or worse to start your benefit at age 62. So there's ways of doing the math to sort of say, what is your family history for lifespan? How is your health today? Can you make some reasonable judgment around your own life expectancy and factor that into the decision? But to be honest, that's such an uncertain data point.
Oh, of course, I would imagine.
If we knew that, it would make planning for so many things a lot easier.
So much easier.
Wouldn't necessarily make life more fun, but it might make planning easier.
Social Security and Medicare are very tied together. I know Medicare takes out a certain amount of one's monthly income. I don't know if everyone is aware of how much that is. And I also know that one can choose to have taxes taken out of their Social Security check as well, which may reduce the overall monthly income. I guess I just am hoping that no one looks at Social Security as a living wage.
Well, I think there are folks who really do. And if you're blessed not to have that as your only source of income in retirement, then again, it's income for life that's sort of separate from other things that will generate income and allow you a higher standard of living. But unfortunately, I think there's people who are really relying on Social Security, and as you can imagine, it's very difficult, very difficult. But your point is right on. Whatever your stated benefit is, it's not necessarily the amount that you're going to see hit your paycheck or hit your checking account every month. So typically, when you're 65, you're certainly eligible, and for most people, unless they're working and have a benefit at work, you are officially part of the Medicare system. And Medicare is 65 for everyone, unless there's, again, just a few exceptions to that rule, unlike Social Security, which does have different considerations at different ages. But with Medicare, something that's done in the recent past is there's not just one premium for Medicare. The premium is a function of what your modified adjustable taxable income has been 2 years before you're actually in the Medicare system. And so it's means tested. The more money you make that shows up on your tax return, the higher premium you pay on Medicare. So another complexity of making this decision is trying to be smart about how you manage what your taxable income is, because it will have a direct impact on what that premium is. And the range is significant. On the low end, it's about $135 a month, and up to over $400. Right. For people who have more means. Right. But it's sort of a democratized sort of premium system now, where those who have more will pay more, those who have less will pay less. Okay. So here you mentioned that Social Security is increasing by 1.6%. Unfortunately, it's going to be offset by about a 7% increase in the Medicare premiums for next year.
I just saw that.
So in
essence,
it's
a loss, actually.
You're going to get a pay cut for sure. But Medicare is it's a wonderful program.
Oh yes, I agree.
And anyone who transitions,
I love it.
Okay, there you go. Here's a testimony.
What about those? I have a friend who's taking her husband's, I'm not exactly sure how to, she's using her husband's Social Security and not her own I'm not understanding exactly what's going on. Explain that just a minute.
So there are strategies, as you might imagine, with 2,700 different rules
Yes,
about it.
there's
There's ways to sort
2,700
of
solutions.
work with the system here to try to maximize the benefit.
Sure.
And if you are in a married relationship, each spouse has to make a decision about Social Security. And so often, or sometimes, there's a spouse whose benefit is actually higher if it's on her husband's record than her own. And that is one of the rules, that the spouses can look to what they've generated through their own earnings history as a benefit, and also look at what their spouse has generated. And the rule is roughly, if doing it on your own benefit is greater than 50% of your spouse's benefit, you're better off doing it on your own. But if one spouse's benefit is less than 50% of their other spouse's benefit, then you're really better off doing it on your spouse. So if we used husband and wife terms, and I'm gonna flip the convention. So if the husband's benefit was lower than the wife's benefit divided by 2, he would be better off taking the benefit with her calculation, not just his own, and vice versa. So again, nuanced, requires a little bit of math, and an understanding of what all the choices are.
I think it's very difficult. We've both noticed this. As we've become older, we have relied more on the financial person we use, because I think there's so many issues that come up, from Social Security to, I won't go into all of the others, but just I think it becomes very confusing. I truly do, and I read. It's,
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The issues there's more issues and they're more complex issues,
Yes.
and the margin for error is very slim.
Yes.
You don't want to make the wrong choice, because
Yes.
often you don't get
You
to
don't get
change
a
your
second
choice.
chance. That's right.
So I think we make decisions every day. What are we going to do on our own? When are we going to reach out for help? And
Right.
so it's not uncommon by the time you get to retirement, and all these issues are really
Looming.
scary.
Yeah,
It's scary.
exactly.
Retirement is one of the most exhilarating phases of life. We look forward to it our whole working life. But there's also the fear that comes with that, because it's a huge responsibility to manage the resources you work so hard to accumulate. You don't want to make a bad choice. So having a partner, whether it's in your health or in your finances, can really be a great source of comfort, confidence, and it brings the joy back into retirement and
That's
alleviates
a nice way to
the
look.
worries.
That looks nice. That's a nice way to put it. I want to ask you about again, this is just reading I've done, the potential increased healthcare cost. Not just because as we get older we might need more healthcare, but also because literally the costs are going up. So skilled nursing care is very expensive. Medicare, my understanding is, does not cover it. Can you talk about the impact of healthcare cost on our retirement funds?
Absolutely. So I like to say retirement really has 3 distinct phases: the go-go, the slow-go, and the no-go. And you're in the go-go phase, Heidi, for sure.
Thank heavens.
And often the catalyst behind defining where we are in that continuum is our health.
Yeah.
And so as we age, it's more likely that things are going to happen health-wise, and that is going to result in more need to engage with healthcare providers and therefore higher costs. Again, the Medicare program is pretty good, and everyone has their supplemental coverage to supplement that.
Sure.
But when we get to the point where we're talking about having long-term care needs, which are different from the traditional, preventative care and, surgeries for a particular situation and so on, where we cannot function in our day-to-day life without some support. That takes us into a whole different realm of planning and a whole different area of uncertainty. Traditional medicine is confusing enough and uncertain enough, but when we get to long-term care, which is where we can't do certain daily activities on our own. We can't live safely on our own. We need to have the support of a trained professional to make sure we're either taking our meds or that we're getting support to just go through our day.
Everyday stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, the Medicare program doesn't really cover sustained skilled care that we might need in long-term care. Medicare will cover up to 100 days of such care if it follows a minimum 3-day stay in a hospital, and if it's within 30 days of being discharged from the hospital. We do have a little bit of a bridge there.
Okay.
But for people who need care beyond the 100 days, now we're talking about, well, it's, we have many facilities in our town here.
Yes,
wonderful
we do.
facilities, and then there's many home care options as well. So those are expenses that our traditional Medicare and supplemental policies aren't going to cover.
They don't cover home care either?
They're very expensive, except for this limited 100-day window.
Okay. Oh
Correct.
my gosh, I never knew that.
So the care at home depends on what you need. Care to move to a facility, whether it's assisted living or skilled nursing, cognitive care, can get into the easily into 7 figures in the course of a year. So it's a daunting challenge. So a couple thoughts on that. We manage risk in our lives every day. We drive a car, we have car insurance. We have a home, we have home insurance. So we always have plans to manage the risk, and we kind of share that risk with insurance companies. With long-term care, the important thing is to have an intentional plan. To think about what's possible for you. How much of that risk could you bear on your own, and how much of that risk would you rather share with an insurance company? So for a lot of people, they have their own resources, and they would be prepared to spend their resources to provide for the care that they need. But then there's other people who don't want to spend their last dime on their health care. Maybe they have a goal to leave some money to their children. And so they want to share that risk and therefore share the cost of potential long-term care through some kind of an insurance product. Now, no, I don't sell any products. I'm a fiduciary financial advisor that doesn't sell products, so I'm agnostic when I talk about this.
Okay, no, I've been wanting to ask about this.
Yeah. So what are the choices?
Yeah.
So one is to completely fund it on your own, and there's ways to run numbers around kind of worst case scenarios to see, is that feasible? And to really make sure you're using, assumptions that are conservative. So maybe, if the average length of stay in a skilled care type facility is just over 3 years, maybe you test, what if I need it for 5 years? So be conservative in the assumption making, and then you do all you can to stay healthy, because that's a wonderful investment in ourselves,
isn't it?
But if that's either not feasible or it's not your preferred way of managing this risk, then there is long-term care insurance, and there's also life insurance, and now there's a hybrid of the two. So let me just explain a little bit. Long-term care insurance is a relatively new type of insurance where once someone proves that they need long-term care, and it's usually by being unable to do 2 activities of daily living, there's some amount of dollars that have been purchased through this life insurance policy that can be used to pay the costs of the long-term care. They're not infinite dollars, they're finite dollars. And however many you build into the design of that life insurance policy will go as far as they will go. And then when that bucket is empty, then you're back to being on your own. So
I didn't know this. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So the process of qualifying for it has become much more stringent.
I've heard that.
So you have to be looking for this type of insurance well before you need it. If you wait until there's serious health issues, you'll actually never make it past underwriting. And so it's anticipatory, and you hope you never use it, right? It's like our home or car insurance. My goodness, we hope we never have to draw on that protection.
Exactly.
But at least it's there. It's a safety net. And then another way of sort of sharing that risk is if someone has the capacity to spend some of their own resources on this type of care, a life insurance policy that's more permanent in nature can help once those assets are used and there's a lower amount for legacy purposes or inheritance. A life insurance policy would in essence refill the bucket.
Okay.
So replace those dollars that have been spent.
Okay.
So that's another way of sharing the risk.
Okay.
And then a third way is a hybrid. It's
Yeah.
a combination. There's actually now life insurance policies that also have a long-term care rider.
I had no idea.
And a lot of that grew out of the fact that fewer people were qualifying for long-term care insurance. Fewer people can afford the premiums because they've gone through the roof. And no matter what you start, the premium is, there's no guarantee it will stay there. In fact, most insurance companies are periodically passing through higher premiums over time. So it can cost more than you initially expect it might cost. And that's a type of policy, you use it or you lose it. So you've invested a fair bit of money in a long-term care policy, and if you never need it, which would be a blessing, but those are sunk costs. That's money you'll never recoup any value for, except for the peace of mind that you knew you had it.
It just doesn't sound like a risk I'd want to take. We do not have one. We've heard more of the cons than the pros. And I didn't know that things can go up and continue to go up, and then that money is not returned to me at any time unless I use it.
Yeah, there's, and so, it's a field where there's such a tremendous need,
Oh,
and there
my goodness.
are growing numbers of sort of tweaks on the
Hybrid.
hybrid that makes it a little more palatable because there's going to be a benefit of some type, either dollars for long-term care or some kind of a claim on a life insurance policy.
Okay.
So it's not money you will see no return for. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
It is. It feels sometimes as though you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You get the insurance policy, and you may frankly be going broke paying for it, never seeing that money again, or you hope you don't need long-term care past 100 days, and much less 3 years or 5 years.
Yeah. So and then the other solutions are family. We are a
I
culture
know.
that supports family and even friends, in need, and so relying
I
on
know.
the kindness and the compassion of other people in your life that can really be a cost saver. But
Karin,
it's-
I'm learning more and more that there's a whole lot of people out there that have families, but maybe that relationship isn't one of, I'm going to be able to financially take care of you, Mom or Dad, or that our time is almost up. It's not yet, but I can't believe we have only hit 2 topics. Can I quick bring up a third?
Absolutely.
Now, I've only heard about this, and I've had actually a colleague of mine and their family were contemplating this. So the situation is, an elderly parent has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and will need long-term care to the end. And they don't have the funds as a family to support this independently, no long-term care policy. They are looking at a Medicaid alternative. Can you briefly try to discuss that? What does that mean?
Yeah. So it's a government safety net, and it's I think it's a wonderful safety net that we all have. That if ever we were to run out of money, we still have ways of getting what we need in terms of care. So it does limit your field of choice as far as where the facility might be.
Okay.
However, there's still some solutions. And so I'm grateful for Medicaid. I think a lot of people view that as a negative or are afraid of it. I think it's really unfairly pictured that way. I think it's a wonderful ultimate fallback plan for all of us. So not to fear.
That's wonderful to
Not
hear
fear.
that. All right.
Because I also think no matter where you are, the need for advocacy, if you're going to a very high cost facility, I think when you have a family that cares and they come around and make sure that Mom or Dad or whoever is getting what they need and being well cared for, that really is a big component of what ensures the quality of the care.
Yeah, good.
So absolutely essential with any choice you might make.
There are all sorts of rules associated with Medicaid, I understand, as you get older, and spinning down monies or something. And so if someone's interested in or wants more information about that, they should see a financial person or go to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid office.
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No one's alone in making these choices. I think that's the last comment. It is daunting, and you know, to know you're not alone. There are resources out there that can really support you in making these very critical decisions.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
scary stuff. You know what? I want to just have you. We have about 3-4 minutes left. Unbelievably, Karin, I feel like I could spend 2 hours with you sitting here. What is the best advice you could give someone at 25, 50, 66, you know, onward?
I love this question, and the answer for people say from the time they get your first paycheck when you launch your career, save. If you think about our work life, say from our 20s to our 60s, is about a 40-year period. Our retirement life, because we're living so much longer, is, you know, say 60 to maybe even 100. We see more and more people living to be 100.
I agree.
So our retirement time frame is about the same as our working life time
I never
frame.
thought of it like that.
So we need the dollars that we're earning during our work life to support us not just during our work life, but also in our retired years, because it's really up to us. Very few companies offer pensions anymore.
I know.
We will have Social Security, maybe, and then it's all about what we can save and build as a nest egg.
Yeah.
So to think about what would your future self say to you in terms of the choice to spend or save, and how much freedom do you want when you get to that age where you're really ready to retire, will be dependent on the choices you made starting back in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s about how much to save. So saving is the answer. It's hard, but it's a lot harder later if you don't save. So I say save more. With every paycheck, with every pay increase, keep saving more instead of adding to your lifestyle.
That is wonderful advice. I have a 30-year-old daughter, and we have talked about this until I think she's sick of hearing me talk about it.
You're a good
and
mom.
She is a wonderful saver and puts it
Oh my
in
gosh.
various pension funds and all of that
Fantastic.
sort of thing. And I'm so proud of her. It is so difficult to be, you know, a young person or starting out in a new home and not wanting, you know, to have it decorated beautifully, or the new car, or it's hard for people to make our age to make decisions to save rather than take the trip to Europe.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to stuff, it's always been interesting to me that by the end of our lives, we want to get rid of ourselves.
Yes. Isn't that the truth? Yes.
If only we had saved and not built up all this stuff.
We wouldn't have that whole range of
And
decisions.
we probably could afford more travel.
I have a gal coming on in the first of the year who's works with seniors on getting rid of their stuff. So, that is a great topic, a necessary one. I can't thank you enough. I would love to have you come back this spring and let's talk about a whole bunch of other things. It seems like we just Roth IRAs, you know, pension funds. It seems like we just got started, Karin, and I'm so grateful you came. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heidi, and thanks for all you're doing for the north of 60 folks here in Hudson.
North of 60 folks, by God.
Yeah.
If you want any more information or contact information for Karin, please feel free to send me an email at hudsonnorthof60hctv@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share that information with you. Thank you so much for watching.